So I wanted to say hi, everyone. Welcome to the Lunch and Learn with Carte Blanche. Bonjour à tous et à toutes. Nous sommes ravis de vous souhaiter la bienvenue ici en ligne. Je vais continuer en anglais. So my name is Riley Palanca. I'm the Membership Services Coordinator at the Quebec Writers Federation. Before we begin, I'd like to mention that the Quebec Writers Federation represents diverse individuals who live and create on traditional territories of many First Peoples. The QWF office is located at Tiohtià:ke, which is what the Kanien'kehá:ka or Mohawk, and now many others call Montreal. This place has been and continues to be a historical gathering place for many Indigenous peoples. We're grateful to be part of a long and proud history of creating and sharing stories on these lands. So, just some very minor housekeeping. This meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded on QWF's YouTube channel in a few days. It is also being live streamed on QWF's Facebook page right now. If you're experiencing any technical issues, such as maybe you're unable to hear people very well, or whatever other technical issues are arising, just post it in the chat and one of our staff will try to assist. Please keep yourself muted unless you have been given the floor to talk, and that there will be a question and answer session at the end. So you can put any questions you have in the chat, but we may not necessarily be able to answer them until the specific designated Q&A session. Rest assured, any written questions will be answered today, though. So I'm very excited. Our guest for today's Lunch and Learn is Carte Blanche. Carte Blanche is a Quebec-based online literary magazine published by the Quebec Writers Federation. True to its slogan, there's more than one way to tell a story. The magazine presents eclectic narratives in all forms and supports Canadian and international writers and artists, bringing communities of readers new stories and voices to help make sense of life and the world. They publish 3 issues a year and accept poetry, fiction, creative nonfiction, photography, translation, and comics from Canadian and international artists with a focus on Quebec-based artists. So from the Carte Blanche team, we have their editor-in-chief, a former QWF board member and a beloved member of our literary community, Greg Santos. We also have their longtime translation editor, Nicola Danby, a working translator and a former president of the Literary Translators Association of Canada. So Greg and Nicola, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Riley and the QWF for having us here today. I'm so excited to be a part of this Lunch and Learn event. And so what I wanted to do, first of all, here was give a little bit of an overview of Carte Blanche magazine. And what's interesting for me is that I was going through some of the previous issues or some of the first issues, excuse me, for the magazine, and we were published in 2004. That was the founding of Carte Blanche, and what was interesting to me was that it was started off by QWF workshop members to promote the work of emerging writers and also to create a sense of community among them for many people who do QWF writing workshops. So that was really interesting to see how it started and then how it has grown into an internationally recognized magazine. And I just wanted to show folks what, if I can share screen, what our, let's see, the first issue looked like. So I'm just gonna go here and share. Hold on. Here we go. All right. So can people see this screen here? What's up? Yeah. Yeah. So this is Carte Blanche #1. And I just I just wanted to show you what everyone is. First, we just had nonfiction, poetry, and fiction at the very beginning. And so it says, so Carte Blanche is a literary magazine that features nonfiction, fiction, and poetry. And so here I'll say an initiative that grew out of the Quebec Writers Federation's workshop. and Blanche aims to promote the work of emerging writers and create a sense of community amongst writers participating in QWF workshops. So I thought that was very cool to see and to recognize names of many people like Gina Reutman, who was the first issue prize winner for a story. We have Elise Moser. We have many other names here that I recognize, and was just happy to see that that was there. So yeah, so I just wanted to show you that. And in terms of our stylistic tone, what was interesting that you mentioned is our tagline, which is there are many ways to tell a story. And I think that's very true. I think since we started with poetry, fiction, and nonfiction, we've grown to incorporate many other genres. So we have, as was mentioned, um, uh, comics and photography as well. So we have the visual arts represented, and we also have a translation, which is usually from French to English. And so what we tend to do is we're pretty open to different creative styles, and we're open to show lots of different voices, and I think that's very interesting to see um, what's around, what's being published here in Quebec and then in Canada and internationally. So it's always been very interesting for me to see what type of work is being published and how we as a venue can help support artists who are either emerging writers. And what always excites me is when we have creators who are this is their first time publishing to people who are well established writers who are interested in sharing their work with us. And so we like to also we tend to lean towards literary works. And we do encourage marginalized and underrepresented voices. That's been very important for my mandate as becoming since becoming editor in chief. Now, I just wanted to give everyone a little background on myself, just quickly. How did I join a Carte Blanche? And I've actually been a part of the Carte Blanche team since I think 2012, which seems like it's been a long time. And I joined as a co-poetry editor with I was working alongside Patrick McDonough, who was one of the founding poetry editors of the magazine, and it was so interesting to join this team of um, of creators and creatives uh, that have wanted to really share and support the work coming out of Quebec and beyond. And it's been wonderful working with a team. And just so you know, um, we have a number of section editors. So we have a section editor for each genre. So for fiction, for poetry, for comics, and Nicola is our translation editor. And we also have on our team, so myself, there's Zoe Shah, managing editor, and we just recently brought aboard two more team members to have an outreach and events coordinator and a communications manager. So we've expanded the team to about 10 people, and it's been a joy to be a part of Carte Blanche. And so I was just I wanted to ask Nicola a question actually, and how we'll kind of talk a little bit more about the magazine is how did you learn about Carte Blanche, and what's your favorite experience as a translation editor been, Nicola?
Hi, everybody. It's so nice of you to have us. It's really fun because we do so much of this work quietly in the dark. And so it's neat to get to talk about it and see faces and stuff. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. So I think right now I'm the person at the magazine who's been there the longest. And I think I'm only a few months ahead of Greg. So I started when I guess it was 2011 or early 2012. And I got involved in it because I happened to be friends with some of the founders of the magazine. So Maria Shamus Turner, who was one of the first published people that you saw in the first issue, she wrote that piece, I think it's Tango Tourism. Anyway, Rhonda Mullins was the original translation editor, and Rhonda and I had been working together as translators for a while, and she asked me one day if I was interested in that stuff because I'd been involved in the Literary Translator Association, and I was teaching at McGill and translating books and things, and of course I leapt at the chance, and so I've been the translation editor for a long time now. And I think the thing that one of the experiences that I have loved the most about the magazine is this opportunity that keeps coming back to me very selfishly, as someone who spent a lot of time in the academic world and in the brass tacks translation world, is that there aren't many places where we can actually delve into the artistic side of meta translation. So talking about translation through translation in a way that is entertaining and not purely academic, right? So every once in a while we get to publish a piece in Chiac. So, or we publish a translation of Chiac. So that's not something you see happen very often. The translation publishing world is so dominated by financial issues that there aren't many places where little things like that can be published and become visible. And I get to work with these translators, so we get to workshop the translations and edit them and make them better, and then they can go on to maybe being published with sort of a better edge to them. So we did the Chiac piece. There are people who send me Baudelaire pieces, translations of Baudelaire, which are now, of course, in the public domain, so there are no rights issues. So that's always really fun. And there's some bilingual text that I've been able to publish as well, which is sort of a translation art form. So it's not so much just translation, but it's all of these translation as art things that Greg says, yes, we can translate this time. So I think that's been my favorite thing about it. Yeah. And then I see it appear in the world. We translated something that was the Le Pelleteur de Neige, this children's book in French, and we published it in English, and then it became a play. And I was walking along the street, and it's Le Pelleteur. Now it's a play as well as being a translation in carte blanche. So there are lots of little treats in there for someone like me. I think that answers your question, huh, Greg?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's definitely something that I find very exciting. As I mentioned before, I came aboard as a poetry editor, and I think what's been really um, rewarding to see is when we have a number of say emerging poets, when I'm thinking of particularly, that started and sent us a piece and realized afterwards that it was like the first piece. And I'm thinking right now off the top of my head of Domenica Martinello, who has a new collection, I think, coming out now. But I remember one of the times we had an event and she did a reading with us and she had her family there. I think we did a launch at Blue Met, and she's like, this is my first piece that I've had published. And then afterwards having a book published and seeing that piece that was originally published in carte blanche is just really nice to see that you were a part of uh, that world that also supports young artists and artists or emerging artists of all ages, of all backgrounds. And I think that's been really exciting for me to see. And also, say, like you said, getting a chance to work with writers who are more established, who are just excited to get their work seen maybe in a different venue. Most recently, I'm thinking of uh, Liz Howard, um, who won the Governor's General Award. We recently had a piece published by her in Carte Blanche, and we had an event. And that's one of the things that I love that we're able to do is to, which had been difficult during the pandemic, but now uh, uh, we're able to do more events in person, and we're trying to do stuff online as well. But to have these folks celebrated where they could read their work to people aloud. So we partnered with a number of local bookshops, say like Argo Books, and we had Liz Howard come and read out loud, and she just said how wonderful it was to be reached out to and to be able to share her work with people and just come out. And we'd interacted online but never met in person, so that's wonderful. But then yeah, being able to do events at different local areas and such as like Drawn and Quarterly, we had our issue 48 launch there, and we got to um, showcase our writers, but also our visual artists, which we had a projection, and got to be able to show their visual art on screen. There's like a YouTube movie that went along with one of the pieces. Um, anyway, so those things are all really exciting. I guess one thing that I wanted to um, talk about here is a little bit of a explanation and demystification process of our submission, selection, editorial, and publication process, because I think not everyone knows how that works. And I think every magazine or lit journal is different in that way. And so, like I mentioned, we're a team of a number of different section editors and different people. So currently right now, we have a submission period that's open. We end on June 15th. So I will remind folks here that we have a theme, and that's what sometimes we do. It helps us organize what the issue will be like, and the theme is play. And so right now that's open. People are able to submit. And what we do is we have a submittable page, and people are able to click through that. And if you don't have a submittable account, it's something that you can sign up for. It allows us to really organize how the pieces get sent to folks, like to the editors. So when things get submitted, we have this open period where everything gets sent to us, and once it closes, that's when our editors are able to go through the pieces. And so what the poetry gets sent and designated to the poetry section editor. So fiction, same thing, and to all the different pieces. So they have a chance to go through the pieces. And I think what's challenging is we only have a certain amount of pieces that we can publish per issue. And one of the biggest challenges as somebody who is a poet myself, when I submit to other magazines, it's hard when things don't get chosen. But I think one of the things is that lots of times there's a lot of strong pieces, and we can only be um, selective of at least, let's see, if I'm thinking of say poetry, we have about uh, six in an issue, or 4 or 5 fiction pieces. And so it depends per issue. We have to see how many pieces everyone chooses, and then we're able to um, put the magazine together. And so there's a lot of times it's the section editor who takes a look and chooses the pieces. Sometimes there'll be communication with the other editors saying, look, I have this piece that's really wonderful. I want to share this with you. There's sometimes some back and forth there. But again, it's very much on the team to select their pieces. Then once we've all selected those pieces, that's when the nitty gritty of sending the acceptances to folks, the harder the hard part of saying no. The other thing that we do try to do, and just for people who probably have submitted to us, who are thinking of submitting to us, is when we tell you that we'd like you to send again, that's definitely true, because there's something that we probably saw and that we're taking the time to say, look, we couldn't publish you this time, but please do submit again, because I think there's something there. And I think those little comments are important, and we do try to do personalized comments when we can, because I know how hard, again, it is to submit our babies, our work to out there, and it puts us all in a vulnerable place. But I'm just trying to think. So yeah, we publish 3 times a year. So again, we usually do open, like we do a submission period for a couple of months, and then work on that, and then piece the issue together. And again, we're very excited to, when an issue comes out, to be able to celebrate it with a launch, and to celebrate our creators. I think I've been chatting a lot here. I just wanted to mention that there are a few things that we do with the community that's I find also really, really fascinating and helpful in terms of building this community and being a part of this literary community within Quebec. And it's I know one program or project that we have coming up is that the Rosalind and Max Margles Young Writers Contest is, I think, just finished up, and that's the young writers who I think whose work we're going to be publishing in the next issue. So I know I think I saw in the Suburban the announcement just this past week. So stay tuned for that. We'll be publishing the winners and the runner-ups, I believe. We also have again the idea of helping and supporting community. We have uh, a program called the Fresh Pages Diversity Initiative, which we was started by the QWF, and we've been a part of for a few years now. And I'll just so what it was started in 2019, and it's to create opportunities for promising writers and playwrights who, perhaps because of their ethnic or racial profile, have faced systemic and or financial barriers to take part in professional development activities. So one thing that I've been very happy to have is we've had our various section editors working with a mentee to learn about what it's like being an editor. So our first one was having a mentee work with our poetry editor and help them curate a section to an issue. So we did that with poetry, with fiction and nonfiction. And currently right now we'll be working with a mentee who will be working with our managing editor, Zoe Shaw, to see what it's like to be a managing editor, to help them see what it's like working behind the scenes and putting together a magazine. And so that's going to be very exciting to do that. And I think it's really important that we help a lot of underrepresented voices and artists who might not always get a chance to have their voices heard, be a part of this literary community. So I guess one thing I wanted to do too is how I mentioned, the poetry section was what I have a background in, because I had done poetry for a number of years, and then the opportunity arose to be editor-in-chief, and that was in 2019 when I came aboard. So it's been very interesting for me to take a magazine, especially during the pandemic, and continuing it, which in many times have been challenging, but it's something that I feel is so rewarding for myself, that it's so wonderful to have a team that's there and supportive. But I know that the section editors process is all very different, so everyone uh, does it a little bit differently. And I wanted to ask Nicola what your process is in selecting or soliciting a piece, and what's your editorial process like working with writers?
It's so, I'm sure it's so different for everybody. I know I've been at meetings before where I've heard the editors talk about, like the poetry editors talk about how they have hundreds of submissions to go through. I don't have that good fortune / problem. I usually get maybe 10 or 20 submissions. The thing about translation that's different is that you can only translate something that's already been written, right? Written and published, and you have to get permission from the publisher to translate any of that. So it's already kind of been judged, evaluated by systems in place, by the overculture or whatever, to decide what gets published and then what gets read and then what gets translated and then what gets submitted. So for me, knowing what's going on in the French literary world is really important, because carte blanche is a great platform to showcase, demonstrate, testify to the dominant voices and the quiet voices in French literature. So when I solicit something from someone, it's usually because I know they're working on something that is from a voice that should be known to English Canada, or maybe a different take on a voice that's already really well known in English Canada. And it's also, being the editor means I get to learn about a whole bunch of people. Bring me writers that I've never heard of as well, right? So it's sort of like it's sort of a curated creative act for me. So I get submissions, and first of all, I have to make sure that they're from French into English. I spend a lot of time writing to people saying, I'm sure you're a wonderful Polish translator, but I can't, aside from appreciating your incredible alphabet, I have no idea what you've written. So no, I can't publish this. It does need to be French to English, and we need the rights of the French publisher if it's within the last 50 years. And if it's a project that is going to be published in English, then the English publisher needs to promise to give us credit for having published an excerpt first. So there are a bunch of, it's not just my taste, there are a bunch of have to things I need, required pieces before I can accept something. And for me anyway, for translation, if there's something, if I write to somebody and say, please submit again, I really mean it, because there's a literary appreciation, but there's also a skill and a responsibility and an ability, and I really hope they do. And I try really hard to write to them and say, I really like the way you did this. And I tell them the good things they did in their translations, and not just, yeah, please write again. That being said, sometimes there are pieces that come in and I can't publish them right away, but I don't want to let them go. So I hold on to them maybe for another issue. And sometimes there's amazing potential in it and I revise it. That's what we call looking at French and looking at English and making up the difference, kind of. And then I go through it quite a bit with the translator to say, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? I make suggestions, I make editorial comments. It's a real dialogue. We go back and forth. Sometimes they don't agree. Sometimes I learn things by them not agreeing. Sometimes they're grateful and we end up working together on other things because we find out that we work well together. So it's quite different than someone who sits down with 600 poems and says, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Translation is, it's quite different. And there it does feel like there's a responsibility to it about not just putting anything out there, but really listening to what's out there in English and in French and trying to use carte blanche to showcase the stuff that is missing or that really deserves to be visible,
Yeah, that's a great point point, Nicola. And I think what was mentioned before was that we do have all these various sections, but some sections do get a lot more pieces than others. And so, like was mentioned, poetry is one of the ones that get a lot. I was when I first came aboard, it was the idea because we Patrick had a baby and needed another poetry editor to help read the pieces, and we more recently have had a submission cap, because I remember for myself it was sometimes in a maybe 2 month submission period we get over 1,000 poems sent in, and that's a lot to go through.
Oh, we
And
didn't even have a submission period. It was
yeah,
just all the time.
yeah, so we've had to play with it see what do we do? Do we keep it open? Do we have it, open for a little bit of time? Sometimes if we don't receive all the submissions that we want, or that the editors aren't really feeling, that we open up submissions again, as well, so that we can keep, seeing if we could reach out and get more pieces. So it can depend on like even also because I mentioned we do different say an open submission call where we're not looking for anything specific. It's kind of up to the tastes of the editors to select. But then there's themes, which, like I said, play is the one coming up. We've done numerous ones before. That's like borders, um uh hybridity. We try to think of themes that kind of open enough. Bridges, that's another one, that allow people to interpret that in whatever way that is. But then sometimes we don't get as many submissions during the uh calls, just because maybe people are obviously not writing about that in particular, and so maybe waiting for the next time. So it depends. And one thing I was just thinking about, and with translation, and you, Nicola, was one of the more recent projects that we did, which that you did, that you were a translator for a piece. You also had another translator work at the same piece, and then we did an AI um, version of the piece altogether. I don't know if do you want to talk a little bit about that, because you presented at the Salon du Livre as well about this, and I thought it was
Yeah, that was
fascinating.
really fun. So there's a thing we do in the translation world called a translation slam. I think it's trying to be like a poetry slam, but it's a little different. So typically what happens is somebody chooses a poem, and then more than one person translates the same poem or piece of prose or whatever. And then they're both read, and the crowd decides which one is better. It's like Mad Max meets Edith Grossman or something. So we I think it was a QWF event, though, at the Salon du Livre, and they wanted to do an event about AI and translation. Lori and Maria Turner, I think, organized it. So Pablo Strauss, who's an amazing translator, he's brilliant. He and I translated a piece by Julie Curtness, a segment of her book, into English, and it had a play on. I didn't read the whole book. I should have. That's what you're always supposed to do when you translate anything. You're supposed to read the whole thing first. But it was a whole novel, and I didn't have a lot of time. So we translated a section of that, and it was run through AI. And the same thing was done towards French. So a piece of was it Us Conductors, the Shawn Michaels book, translated into French by two different French translators. And then we had a discussion about it. The printed copies were distributed at the Carte Blanche event. And then we had a discussion about AI versus, us. So as my son's teacher says, actual intelligence instead of artificial intelligence. And that was really neat because things can get translated so many different ways. And some of them are really wrong, and others are just readings, right? A translator is just another creator. So
I'm just putting up on the page here so that folks
yeah,
can see what it looks like. So you see here the three
Yeah,
translations from the Vallée de l'Étrange. So you could see your translation here,
yeah.
and then the translation
And
by
then there's
Pablo Strauss. Yeah.
yeah, and then there's the AI translation,
Yeah.
which is not bad, but not human.
Yeah. I remember I did this. I was
And then
invited.
Pablo wrote a
Yeah.
really neat essay about it.
Yeah. It's over here. Yeah. So there's an essay afterwards, which I think is helpful for people to take a look at what happened when you did this project, which is great. Maybe I can put this in the chat if people want to check it out for this
Yeah.
specific piece. So I'm just gonna stop share there. Yeah, I'm gonna put that in the chat so if people want to
Yeah, I
take a
think
look at that.
the thing about translation that's different is that in translation we talk a lot of, like there's a whole wing of translation studies. So we talk about translation as being talking about translation as an art form in itself, right? And so there are people who there's submissions that we've published where people talk about translation and how being overwritten by a different culture or different language is what they're expressing. So it's like it's a self-translation thing. It's I'm me in many different linguistic realities, and how can I combine those, and how do I make sense, and do those people get along, and all that kind of stuff. So this event was sort of a neat way of sitting down with three other amazing translators, and Shelley Pomerantz was the moderator to talk about that kind of stuff. So we try to include that in the magazine, and like I just am so fortunate that I get to do that, because I don't know of any other literary magazine, especially not in Canada, that does anything like that. You know, that isn't a strict academic journal that publishes academic papers about translation studies or anything like that.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
think
fun. There's a
yeah,
fun creative aspect to it. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's what's really interesting to see. We also had a theme on, all right, well, play is coming up, but I think we had one which is on hybridity, and we got people to submit pieces that don't really fit in a particular box. I think what's nice about carte blanche and our name, the idea is carte blanche. I like that we're able to be open with a lot of different styles of writing and every issue can be different in that way, because we might be leaning more towards, you know, maybe one theme, but then we have maybe different various interpretations, and we can showcase uh, lots of writing and art that I know I haven't always been familiar with. So to have a team has been really great. To that, I feel like say Francine can bring us a lot of information about the comics world. Nicola, with you in translation, I know for fiction with Leanna, and I think it's been wonderful to kind of just see maybe like it's hard to keep track of what's going on in the world and read everything. So I think that's been one of the gifts, is that being uh, able to discover writers and artists that I wouldn't have been familiar with if it wasn't for some of the work that we've done here at Carte Blanche. Um, so I'm just wondering here, looking at our time, we're here till 1:30, I believe, right, Riley? Okay, so I'm just thinking uh that I just wanted to make a little reminder again that our our next issue is the issue 49, and it's the theme of play. Our deadline closes on June 15th, so please, if you have some work that you want to send to us, please do. But also, just I'm just thinking we currently have issue 48 online. So if I could just share that on our screen for a minute, so you can see what you saw the issue one looked like before, but just so you could see what our uh, newest issue looks like. I think what's also exciting for me is um, one of the uh, a big things for me was to have our website updated, and I think it was within the last couple of years that we've done that and have a new website that showcases a lot of the visual art as well as the writing. And we're still archiving the previous issues. We don't want to lose anything, so that's why it's been takes some time. But if you do go on our website, you can see our previous issues from issue 1 up until now 48, which I'm very thrilled about. But I'll just share an image of what we look like right now for those who have not seen us. Just a second. Here we go. So here's carte blanche. We're very here we have our little banner for issue 48, and you can see a preview of some of our pieces. This is our main homepage, and we have there's more than one way to tell a story. So we hope to have made it manageable and easy to navigate. So if you want to know about submissions, you go to submissions. And so you can submit on submittable here. But if you go to read issue 48, this is where you'll see our most recent issue. And you can see they're like these little, we have each piece gets its own little forgetting the word here, part. So if you click on, say, Efflorescence, which was by Catherine Lee, who was the QWF, I believe is the College Writers Award or the Young Writers Award. I don't know if I'm getting the right name, a winner of this last year, who we published in Carte Blanche magazine, and you can see their work there. But yeah, what's interesting to hear is if you want to search a particular category, we made it so that you can search for comics or translation, various things like that. So we do try to make it accessible for folks to be able to look for specific pieces. And since we've always been an online journal, even back in 2004, so we think it's really wonderful to be able to take a piece, so a story here by, say, Jonathan Bissett, and you could just click on a link and send it to folks and share that. Sure. But yeah, I'm guessing that if we could start with a Q&A, Riley, if anybody has any questions for us.
Absolutely. I see that Sophie has her hand up, but I do have a couple of questions in chat that came a little earlier. I'll
Okay.
start with those and then I'll go to Sophie. First is from Susan Gray. What is the average length in pages of Carte Blanche, since you mentioned having published a children's book?
Well, that piece wasn't a full children's book, right, Nicola? It was more of a what's it called? An excerpt of the piece, which was then, I believe, of the French children's book. We did an excerpt, and then it was a play that you saw about that.
I missed I had a beautiful frozen screen for a little while. I missed the beginning of the question. Someone asked about the cloud shoveler, Le Pelleteur de Neige.
Oh, it was just like how many page length
Yeah.
of it, but
I think it was an excerpt. It wasn't the entire book. The publisher wouldn't let us do that anyway.
Yeah, so I think in general
Alas.
we don't publish full say novels or chapters, and then mostly it's excerpts if it's something that's previously been published, especially in translation. Usually for the other pieces, unless it's like a chapter or work in progress, we since we're online, we can be flexible, but I think different sections have different kind of guidelines, like in terms of lengths. So I think for, like, say, a fiction piece, the maximum was 3,500 words, I believe. And then sometimes it changes, but I think yeah, we don't publish full pieces, but parts, yeah.
Oh, thank you, Greg and Nicola. This next question comes from Roberta. Roberta's just asking, is there a second way to submit if submittable sticks or does not function for some reason? What is the backup option if there is one? And is there an email address for carte blanche? And thank you, enjoying all the permutations of words and paragraphs. The words and paragraphs express their souls.
Great. No, thank you for that question. I think if we've had issues with submittable, I think we've encouraged people to write to us at our email address, and I'm just trying to find that here so that I could
Editors
put,
at, yeah.
yeah, I think it's like editors at carteblanche.org, but I'm gonna double check. I don't want to give you the wrong email address. I'm just seeing here. If I go to my email address, I can find it. I think it's editors at carte blanche or carte dash. I'll put it in the .org, but I'll copy it and I'll put it in the chat here so that we have it. It's one second. This is here. That's editors at carte dash
Thank
blanche.org.
Thanks, Greg. Sophie, did you still have a question? Sophie had her hand up earlier.
Yeah, I had a question regarding translation. It says on the website that proof of permission would need to be obtained. So I'm just wondering, what is prioritized? Is it like recent translations, like things that haven't been translated before, or would you consider like an older piece, like an older French piece that maybe has been translated before, but like a new translation or like an interpretation?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. I love that. There's something recently that was, who was it? Steve Martin, Roxanne, Big Nose.
Oh, not sure. I think I know which one you're
You
talking
know what I'm
about.
talking about.
I
But there was
do.
an alternative translation of it, and modernizing anything, a different take on anything classic, I think is really important and really, really beautiful. So I encourage you to do that. And especially if it's in public domain, then you don't have to worry about getting permission from the original publisher. So like Edgar Allan Poe stuff, I get that. How do I get that? That's in English already. I mean, Baudelaire through it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I was thinking about that as well. That makes
yeah,
sense.
I
Okay,
was like,
thanks.
what's wrong with my cognitive capacity here?
Is it
So
Cyrano? Laurie put it in chat. Cyrano.
Cyrano de Bergerac. Thank you. So yeah, I would recommend doing both. Yeah. There's a fellow in Rome who sends me every issue. I don't think he's here. Every issue he sends me a translation of something, a retranslation of something ancient. And I wish I could publish it every time. I can't do it, but I always love reading them, and I always tell him to keep sending them because they're so good. And we've published a few, but yeah, please do. And
Sounds good. Great. Thank
the
you.
permission stuff is we're just not allowed to publish anything unless we get permission. So if you do it
Right, of course.
first, then we can move forward even with the next issue if everything is good. But if it isn't, then sometimes it has to wait till the one after that, and that can sometimes pose problems with the publisher or whatever, because sometimes they want a fee.
Yeah.
So it's like it's
Yeah,
all
there's some negotiations that have to take place in
Mhm.
particular with translation that because usually it's a pre-published piece that we'd have to again get permission from that
Mhm.
publisher, not directly from the translator. So
Yeah.
something that we've been learning about as we've been continue to do because there's always something that comes up that you never, not just for translation, but with comics sometimes or photography, because it's a little bit different from, say, literary pieces. Like sometimes I know with photography, I mean, an artist might share their pieces online, and we not realize that it's already out there, and don't we want to make sure that it's not, say, published elsewhere, so that we don't, take, somebody else's rights or copyright that have, something that's been published. So we have to be aware that yes, this has been published before. I know that that can be tricky. So
Well,
Cool. Well, thank you for answering our question.
Thank you, Sophie. We have Roxana. And Roxana, you also have a question in chat. Is it the same thing you're going to bring up and you just want to elaborate more? Or is it... Go ahead, Roxana. Uh, oh, can I unmute? There we go. I think you would have to unmute.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way we can unmute
Okay.
you. We can ask you to unmute yourself, but I don't think there's any way we can do it on our end.
Okay. Well, Roxana, you type your question in chat. We'll circle back to it afterwards. Let's go to Trey, who has a question. How does one join the editorial reading team, and what kind of experience is required?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, we currently have all our section editors are working currently at the magazine, but I guess when the time comes for if we have new section editors, I guess it depends if you have background working with, say, if you wanted to be fiction editor, do you have background curating pieces maybe in another literary magazine? Are you very much involved within the literary community? We kind of like to see if people are already working on those projects or familiar with that process or the process of curating other people's work in whatever form that may be. So I know for our different editors, they have lots of different backgrounds, but pertaining to that particular section. So I think if you have a passion for whatever section that is, that would be one of the ways to let us know. And if the time comes when we I don't think we've had interns before, but we haven't had that in a number of years. But do keep an eye on at our blog or in our news, because sometimes a position will open up, or again, we have the Fresh Pages mentorship that does come up, and there's a chance for people to work with our editors. That's another thing. That's possible. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Greg. So I have Roxana's question here, then I'll go to Bonnie's afterwards. So Roxana's asking, for the cover letter requirement, what info has to go into the cover letter? Like what do I include in the cover letter, and can I submit a poem and a written piece?
Okay, and so when you mean a poem and a written piece, would that be, I'm just curious if that would be fiction or nonfiction. I guess it depends. In terms of what in a cover letter, just introducing yourselves to us. There's not a big requirement, just so that we can kind of know who you are. So you could put a bio about yourself, but just more what the piece is, and then you can submit. I think it's up to 3 poems if you're doing a poem in a submission. And I think, I mean, that's the basic of it. Just, yeah, introduce yourself, introduce your piece. And if you submitted it elsewhere too, because sometimes we're open to simultaneous submissions. Oops, I don't know if that's me. Here, I'll try again. Okay. Yeah, I hope that answers the question there.
Okay, thank you, Greg. And Roxana, if you would like to... Oh, sorry. Roxana, if you would like to give more context for your question, about can I submit a poem and a written piece, feel free to put it in chat, and then we'll ask, I will ask Greg to elaborate on that. We'll go to Bonnie's question. What kind of submissions do you accept for photography? Can you provide examples? And what is the file format, JPG or PNG, for example?
Okay. I will actually, yeah, we tend to publish photography essays. So maybe a photography that that has a narrative to them in whatever way that means. Sometimes we have sometimes the creator will send in like a little explanatory note. I'll go to our submissions and let you know if I could find here. I could share the screen so you can see. Just a second. Yeah, so here you could see in our we have general guidelines. So you could see how we encouraged it to not be to be unpublished submissions. Uh, and that's again different for translation. So we do have that we do pay our contributors. So you can see it says there's an honorarium of $75 for pieces that are chosen. But here you can see for specific sections. So photography, here, tell a story in 12 photos or less. Together, your photos should create a narrative, whether abstract or concrete. You may include a text-based artist note that will accompany your piece. Keep in mind that your photos will be displayed on the web using a Squarespace image slideshow. Please submit your files at web resolution here. And so it says in PDF or zip. And if we choose to publish your piece, you'll be asked to submit high-quality files for publication. So that's the difference. Of the submitted piece doesn't have to be the final version necessarily, but it's more than we do have to have a high resolution version of it. And I can go show you, for example, what our more recent issue has for photography so you can get an idea. So if you don't mind me just kind of scrolling here, I'm going to read issue 48, and I'm just going to go to the photography. So here we have Summer Day in Guelph. So you can see that there's a artist's little note, but then about a specific summer day. And you can see how when they mention a slideshow, it looks like this. And you can click and see the photography piece there. And then you have the about the creator over here. So we'll have bios for folks there. So hopefully that answers your question about the photography. And again, if you look, there'll be guidelines for each specific genre, and then how to do that for a different section.
Just a quick follow-up from Bonnie. How many can you submit? If it's there or...
And is it for photography or?
I think so, yes, because it's a follow-up from her.
Yeah. So photography, I'll just double check again. I'll go back because I had it there. I think it was 12 images at most was but let me just double check. But I think that's what I said. Yeah, 12 photos or less.
Perfect. Thanks. And just this little follow-up question while we're on the topic of photography. Rachel Garber is asking if the photos must be square or if they can be like landscape or...
That's a good question. In terms of what we have, again, I think most of them are slideshow like that. I'm not sure if Squarespace allows for different ones. I don't want to say no because I don't know if we've dealt with that. And again, this is a more we've just moved from WordPress to Squarespace. So I know it's learning about how that is. I'm not sure, but something you could ask if you need the question, we could get in touch with our photography editor and also Zoe, our managing editor, who does help put all the pieces together in the issue or each issue. So hopefully that helps.
I will just quickly mention I took a quick look at issue 47, and there is a photography essay there called Rainy Evening. And it looks like there are several photos in different formats and like size dimensions. So I think you're good with landscape or portrait.
Yeah, I think we can play with it. I just wasn't sure specifically about round but I think it can be played with then. Thank you.
Perfect. And Tron posted a link in chat of that particular issue, so you can take a look at the various formats of photos that have been uploaded there. Let's go to Valerie's question, which is on translation. Are there French literary magazines or other places that you would recommend we look to find texts to translate? As a follow-up to that, do the original French texts have to be published officially in a magazine, book, etc.? Or would texts published on someone's own blog or website count as published?
Blogs and personal websites, if they're out there and anyone can find them, they're published. So that's great, and that's also very frustrating. If you find something that you want to translate, great. If you want to publish something you've already published, not so great. As far as French magazines and things like that, I wouldn't recommend anything in particular. I would just go into a bookstore and nose around and find something that you like and pick it up and read a paragraph and see if you think you have a corresponding English voice to that. Because I want to find what I know what I know. I want to see what you guys can find for the rest. I mean, it's a platform, right? So I'm sorry if that's not that's not as prescriptive as you might like, but I really encourage you to be to explore.
Thank you. And from
I think that's
Roberta.
it for that question, right?
Perfect. Thank you, Nicola. I have a question from Roberta. How does one submit a translation of one's own writing? Does one submit both versions? It is a brief text in French that I have not yet tried to publish. The text does not work with
Absolutely.
the theme play, so it is a possibility in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I need to see both. I'm a huge fan of self-translations. That's how I spent my 15 years of academic life, was studying Nancy Houston and Sam Beckett. So please send me your self-translations. I'm fascinated. We would only publish the English, though.
Thanks, Nicola. I think you may have touched on this a little earlier, but just for to be official about it, Caitlin is asking, I see that submissions can't have been previously published on social media. What if you posted it on Facebook at some point, but took it down so it's no longer available online?
Oh, I don't know, Greg.
Like a Zoe question.
Yeah, exactly. That's a tricky one that we'd have to. I generally say that and this is not just us. This is most, I think, literary magazines, that if you published it, meaning posted it online, it's generally, I guess, frowned upon, and just, again, it's a rights thing that we and I think the challenging thing over the past number of years is with, say, blogs and again, social media, is if you post it online, then it's something that can be accessed by people. So that one's a tricky one. I would lean more towards even no in that case. My apologies that if it's already been published, it just, again, other journals and magazines would say the same thing because it's out there in the public.
I would say take that piece, pick it
Re
apart,
yeah, rework
rework
it.
it, make
Yeah,
it
then it's new.
better, and
Yeah,
send it in.
yeah. And then, yeah, if there's the earlier, yeah, if it looks different from what the original piece said, it's like a kind of a whole new piece, then yeah, that would work, Nicola. Good suggestion.
It's great advice, indeed. Great advice. Roxana was asking, she said she missed what you said about the possibility of mentorships. I don't know if she's referring to the carte blanche, get the guest editor mentorship, the fresh
Right.
pages. So I was wondering if
Yes.
you could talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. Yeah. So fresh pages, I could put. Let's see if I have it here. Um, I could put the link, maybe, if we have it here. Just a second. I will take a look. It's taking a minute to. Here, I'm going to. Sorry, I'm going to put it here. Where are we? I'm trying to. I have a lot of windows open, so I'm trying to make sure that I'm gonna. What we do is, so it's started with the QWF, and we have a mentorship that's every year that involves a mentee working with an editor. So I know I've mentored someone for a special writers in the community program uh, uh, part of our issue. So that's the writing by youth, an at-risk youth, and usually they publish a zine at the end through the Writers in the Community program. And myself and the mentee, curated a bunch of pieces that we could show on in one of our issues. We've had a fiction editor and poetry editor also have a mentee work with them. So currently we have somebody who was just selected to do the fresh pages for this year that'll be working on issue 49 that's coming up. So do keep an eye out that in the next year there'll be an opportunity. And again, we're not sure at the moment which one will be. We'll probably rotate it. So I'm thinking it could be poetry because that was the one we haven't done in a while. But I have to discuss with the rest of the section editors that there'll be a chance for someone to get about 15 hours of mentorship, uh, maybe working behind the scenes and again helping the editor curate a section, and that's what we've done. In this case, it's something new this year is having someone learning about the management of the magazine, the process there, kind of the signing contracts, some of the more nitty gritty that goes behind the scenes. It's maybe a different way of being creative than selecting the pieces for an issue, but really the rewarding and wonderful work that I know Zoe is excited to take on the mentorship position there, working with our mentee.
Yeah, and so transferable. Those skills can help you in any area of publishing. That's
Yeah.
really an eye-opening opportunity.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for telling us more about that. It's a great mentorship, our the Fresh Pages guest editorship position. Susan Gray is asking, how about humor? I write fables and fairy tales not just for children, sometimes for YA. I think I read Sanda's Your Strangest Story. What do you mean by play? I guess you're referring to your feed.
The theme. Okay. I think all of those, again, because we're open to many different styles and genres, I think the theme play is kind of however you want to interpret it. And that's what I've told folks before, that maybe you have a piece that is maybe a playful experimentation. So the piece itself is something that was created in a playful way. Or maybe the story has something to do with, I don't know, I'm just taking it out there, children playing and then something surprising happens. So again, we leave it open enough that it's up to the writer to see where that goes. Perhaps play in this issue might not be what you're looking for, so you don't have to submit something that maybe I'll shoehorn it and make it play. Maybe you want to wait for another issue to come out. The next issue will be issue 50, which will be an open submission period. So there's no necessary theme. So if just to give you an advance notice there that the next issue will be open themed. So it could be whatever. So maybe you want to work on that before this deadline ends. And I guess I think I mentioned it, but since issue 50 is coming up in the fall this year, that's a big issue. So we're in the process of organizing like a launch and also maybe activities and hopefully some merch, maybe even a special printed issue of carte blanche. We're in the organization period of this, so do stay tuned because I think we'll have some fun things planned for us. So hope maybe even some merch like buttons and stickers and anyway, that'll be something to keep an eye out.
I'd like to clarify a little bit because what I mean, because when I read it was something I read right on the website or on your call for entries. Send us your strangest story. But in my brief experience sending in these fairy tales and fables, like I think I'm trying to get it clearer in my head. When they say strangest story, I mean, they really mean super strange. But
It's so subjective.
It is.
That's so hard.
It is.
That was an idea, that send us a strange, playful story. You can do we publish pieces like that, and again, it depends too on which section editor is reading
Right.
it and how they connect with it.
Right.
We've had some very strange stories published, some interesting hybrid pieces, some playful essays that incorporate different genres all in one, and we like that. Yeah, I think it's up to you as the creator to say, okay, this is really weird. This is out there. I don't know if people will like it, but maybe that's something that will. I know for myself, when I was poetry editor, I liked to look for pieces that would surprise me, or whether that's surprising in that
Mhm.
I wasn't expecting that in the piece, or I really loved the image that was surprising. But I think again, it can be very subjective, as Nicola said, depending who's reading it, and if it's like our fiction editor reading a story, it might be that really strange story piques their interest. But again,
Okay.
because of the theme is play, and that leads it up to what could that mean? Maybe the story has something to do with play, or maybe just the process of what you did.
Okay, thanks.
Hopefully that helps.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you. Sorry, I lost my chat for a quick second. Emily is asking, may I submit a translated chapter from my published French book?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Please do.
Yeah, we've done chapters and excerpts before, I know, in translation, and I think we've done it too with fiction, that we've had like an excerpt from a book, or just let us know. Just say, okay, this is a piece that's been published. Maybe that's a way that we can incorporate it. If it's something that's published, to give people a heads up, or if it's something that you're working on, again, we're able to do that. I think preferably when it's on in the translation, I find that's, I guess we have the rights first when it gets published, so that we say, if it's a piece that gets published that isn't published yet, we publish with us, and then say your piece is part of a book. It's just asking to say, hey, carte blanche, we published this little piece in this part in carte blanche. That's as an acknowledgement. But we're excited for people to send their works. I hope this gets everyone excited to submit, and looking forward to seeing what comes our way.
Thanks, Greg and Nicola. A follow-up question from Valerie on translation. In terms of the process for getting permission from the publisher, the translator, would contact the French publisher of the text, and they would have to give us written confirmation stating that we have the right to translate and attempt to publish the text in English, with a question mark. And then we would send this written confirmation to carte blanche alongside our submission.
100%.
Perfect.
Check. Perfect. Yeah, usually it's the rights editor, or the rights person at the publisher who does that stuff. But yeah, they know what they're doing usually.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Thanks.
it makes it easier on our end, because there can be little issues if we just say, oh, I just translated this, I don't know. I'll have to contact them. We preferably like to have that done beforehand, so that it's not us chasing after the publisher, just because that can take time.
That. Last year we had somebody, right, who submitted something amazing and said, I'm working on getting the rights, and the rights never came, and we waited another issue and then another issue, and the publisher, we just couldn't get in touch with them, and neither could the author. It was really
frustrating.
It was so sad for the translator.
Because you'll come across pieces that you really want, and so that's one of the more trickier things with translation in this case, that you do have to make sure you have the rights beforehand, and
because they can block you.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Afruz, I recognize your hand, I acknowledge it, but I'm just going to go through a couple of the questions that came beforehand, and then we'll get to your question. Sophie is asking, mentioning that the website says to only submit once per year. How strict is this?
I guess it's because we get so many submissions. I think we try to keep it that it's once a year, just because to give chances for other people who may haven't submitted. Same thing with people who have been published with us. We do ask that there's like a calendar year before, because again, you don't. I guess there's the everyone, if somebody gets selected a number of times, it takes away from other people getting a chance. So if you submit to us, it's one way to kind of housekeeping and not have so many to have to go through for us and the team.
It's a good answer. Yeah.
Thank you, Greg. Gail is asking, do you have to reside in Quebec? I was born and raised in Montreal, but now live in Alberta. Should I submit?
You should definitely
Yes,
submit. Yeah. So what was interesting is when, like I mentioned, that it first started as a QWF members who started the magazine and was wanting to help encourage emerging writers. What's been so wonderful for me is that while we do publish, it's also part of our grant for the Cabinet Council. We have to make sure we publish a certain amount of Quebec and Canadian content. I do love the idea that we're able to bring in creators and creatives from the United States, from international places, and I think that's wonderful because we get a taste of art from all around the world with carte blanche, and I love how that it's grown in that way. But we still maintain a focus on Quebec writers, but sometimes as you'll see, we also have some of our editors in the past have not resided in Montreal or Quebec. When I first joined, I was living in New Haven, Connecticut, and was doing it remotely. And then I am from Montreal, but I moved back. But yeah, so we don't publish just Quebec writers. Also, you don't have to be a QWF member. However, we do encourage QWF members to send their work. And also, one thing too that I don't think we often say enough is that if you are in a QWF workshop and you have pieces that you've written there, do send in your finished pieces to us. That it's a venue that you can publish in once you've done that. I think that was just a really cool idea that I was speaking with someone to the other day. I'm like, yeah, they should submit because it's a piece that you workshop, and why not?
Well, thank you, Greg. Does the photography submission need to follow the theme of play, or can it be open-ended?
Well, I guess we like to have this theme for all of the submissions for play, however that might be. Again, if you feel like maybe this isn't the theme for you, I'd say wait for our submission period, which this one's going to close soon, but we'll open it again likely later this summer. So if you want to work on that, I'd say save it unless you feel like it does work with play. If there's a way you can even, I'd recommend if you want to put that in your cover letter, how your piece relates to play. That would help too, because that'll allow the editors to select the pieces that way.
Perfect. Thank you, Greg. So let's go to Afruz now, and afterwards, I think we have a couple of hopefully final questions. So I know we're getting close to time, but I'll give the floor to Afruz for your question.
Thank you, really. I first want to apologize for not opening my camera. My appearance is not ready for launch and learn.
No problem.
So my question was about since interpreting a theme is very vast and there are different ways to tell a story, and like all of these different options, should we kind of talk about why for example, why I think a piece that I sent you is related to this theme or not. Should I just leave it to the editor to I don't know, figure it out, or like realize it, feel it, kind of?
No, that's a great question, and I think I think as I might have mentioned before, if you in your cover letter, that's a great place
Yeah.
to explain what your piece and how it fits into that theme. It might not be completely apparent to the editors right away, so that
Okay.
any type of little help you're able to put there will be appreciated.
Okay, thank you. Because there are some literary magazines, they don't really want to like read like explanations on cover letter in the
Okay.
cover letter. So I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
if this is
No,
something
no,
I
you're
can
welcome
explain.
too, because I think it helps us when we're reading the cover letter. It kind of helps
Yeah.
us place what it is. I think we're fine with that. I just yeah, you don't want it to be a cover letter that kind of explains that's like a whole, novel in that sense of
Yeah.
giving us your people's background and whatnot, but just enough that that explains what it comes from would be great, especially if it's in a themed issue. But sometimes if when we do have our unthemed issues, explanation helps just so that we can, see how that fits into an issue.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Rick.
you.
Thank you, Fruz. So Emily was asking, I guess a follow-up to the question earlier about the once a year maximum. Is it once a year per category or once a year overall? So what if we want to submit to fiction and translation, basically?
Okay. That is an interesting question. Because I think all we have there is that to encourage to submit no more than once a year. Um, I I think I mean I guess the reason we have that in is so that we're not inundated by say one person who's submitting a number of things. So I don't know. I would err on submitting maybe in a submission at the same time if you have them already. I think that's possible to say, look, I have a poetry piece and a fiction piece. I think I've seen that before, and I think that's okay, but maybe not like submitting during one submission period and the next submission period and then the next submission period, like still sending. I think that's more what it means. I hopefully that helps a little bit. It just again, it's more a housekeeping thing than wanting to if we get a lot all at once.
Well, thank you, Greg. And I guess Sophie mentioned because that was also one of Sophie's questions earlier, and Sophie said that that they got disconnected, so they missed the answer to that question. But that was basically their question, the one earlier about how strict we are about the one submission per year. So we're a bit strict about it, Sophie. Um, I guess we're wrapping up close to time. We'll just give this final question from Roberta, which is a bit of a suggestion, which is why not have a limit of 5 submissions per year? Or did we
We
already
don't
kind
really
of
keep
answer it
track
earlier?
that way. That's a whole other mechanism
Yeah,
is
because that's keeping
keeping.
track of how many. I don't think we have the I guess the time to say, okay, this person has sent us this many pieces this year. I think it's to keep things again organized on our end that we're able to keep track. And if somebody submits too often, it could be, there are thankfully lots of other venues and other magazines in Montreal and Quebec that are looking for pieces. So if it doesn't work for carte blanche, do consider like people who we've remained kind of in contact with or who we also support. I'm just thinking of certain venues like Vallum magazine. I know I work with them numerous times as an outreach workshop worker. There's Yoke, who is another literary magazine in Montreal. We've been trying to partner with them in different organizations. Like we had a literary Oktoberfest that was created by Yoke, and they had all kinds of different literary magazines take place, different Anglophone magazines that had a great little meetup, and so we're hoping to do more of those. So yeah, keep your eyes open to other. And I think it's something that we try to share as well on our social media when we have other venues that have submission periods as well. So we while we love to get your work, we want to be able to spread that out to a lot of different folks as well.
And join QWF, because every month my colleague John sends out a newsletter which is full of calls for submissions to various magazines and journals, and you never know what the right opportunity.
That's it. And then sometimes same thing. We might not get you submit and you might not get chosen that time, but then another time, hey, it could be possible. So, but yeah, I think it's just to help maintain, like, try to keep track of our work or people who submit to us.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Greg and Nicola. It's a beautiful place to end it. Submit everywhere.
Yes.
So thank you all for coming. Thank you to Greg and Nicola. And just as a reminder that they do have a submission that's closing next week. I'm gonna post it in chat just so you have it. Their most recent call for submissions. So hope that you would all submit, and if you have any writing that is related to the theme of play. So thank you all so much for coming. Thank you to Greg and Nicola for taking time out of your busy day to speak to us, and hope to see you all at our next Lunch and Learn.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Thanks, everyone.
Look forward to reading you.
Bye bye.
Bye.